A truck driver helped a boy. Years later, it changed his life. The night was thick. The sky, without moon or stars, looked like a black mantle spread over the immensity of the BR-163. The only living thing in that forgotten stretch was the constant roar of an old but firm truck tearing up the road with its yellowed headlights. Inside the cab, Miguel, a 58-year-old truck driver, kept his hands steady on the wheel despite his heavy eyes. The windshield vibrated with the force of the wind, and the music coming from the old radio mixed with the noise of the engine. An old viola fashion that spoke of the road, loneliness, and promise. Miguel wore a sweaty shirt close to his body and a faded cap with the logo of a small carrier in the interior of Paraná. His unshaven beard was already gray, his face creased by the hours of poor sleep and the years of struggle. He had not slept for more than 2 days. It was part of the routine and of survival. Delivering the cargo on time was the only way to guarantee the monthly bonus which he already counted on to pay the mortgage on the house and his wife's medicines. The truck was not his, it belonged to the company, and he already knew the rule well. He was late, he lost. Nobody wanted to know. If there was traffic, rain, or fatigue, delivered after the deadline, goodbye goal. The cabin seat already had the foam torn. On top of the panel, some photos attached with masking tape. His wife smiling next to an improvised birthday cake, his granddaughter in a school uniform, the eldest son in front of the barracks. An elastic band tied a stale loaf of bread that he had not yet had time to eat, but at that moment he didn't even feel hungry. It was sleep that weighed like lead. He had already stopped twice that night to wash his face. At the last stop, at a closed station, she looked at herself in the bathroom mirror and barely recognized herself. Sunken eyes, dark circles under her eyes, her soul asking for a pillow. Just a little longer, he muttered. Just arrive in Cuiabá. I deliver this blessed load and sleep like a stone. His hands began to sweat. He turned up the volume on the radio. He took a deep breath. He put a piece of gum in his mouth, trying to trick the body, as he always did. The road, deserted, seemed hypnotic. The white bands flashed by, pulling his mind to a dangerous place. The threshold between conscious and dream. He knew he was flirting with risk, but he also knew he had no choice. And it was at that moment, on that thin thread between obligation and exhaustion, that something flashed on the horizon. A warning flasher. Weak, intermittent, lonely. Miguel frowned, squinted, and slowed down. A car stopped on the side of the road. Nothing nearby. No house, no post, no sign of help. Only the muffled sound of the engine itself and the pitch cut by the headlights. "Hey boy," he murmured, already with his hand on the arrow. "I wonder what happened." He didn't know it yet, but that decision to stop would change his life forever. Miguel activated the arrow and pulled the truck to the side of the road carefully. The roar of the engine subsided, but the weight of the night was still there, dense, silent, and enveloping. The warning lights of the stopped car still flashed, lonely, like a cry for help flashing in the dark. With the high beam, he could see better. It was a small, dark sedan car. It was slightly sloping, the rear tire visibly deflated. A young man in his early 30s, well-dressed with a rolled-up dress shirt and loose tie, paced back and forth, cell phone in hand, visibly nervous. Miguel got out of the truck slowly. His boots met the dirt floor with a dry crack. The night air was humid and cold, and there was the smell of wet weeds mixed with dust from the road. "Good evening," Michael shouted in a hoarse voice, still trying to sound firm. The boy turned quickly, relieved at the approach. "Sir, could you help me?" he said, panting. "My tire went flat, and I'm already in the spare tire. The next station is almost 100 kilometers from here. I have nothing to do." Miguel scratched the back of his head. He felt the weight of the watch on his wrist. It was far beyond the ideal time. His deadline for delivery was slipping away like sand between his fingers. But he did not respond immediately. The young man approached, looking at the truck with hopeful eyes. "I'm going to an important interview. It couldn't be missing. But now I'm here. No signal, no help, nothing. I only saw the headlight of your truck and thought, who knows? Miguel looked at him, then at the car, then at the sky. He sighed deeply. He knew what he should do if he wanted to keep the bonus. Start the truck, move on, and pretend you didn't see it. But he also knew what his heart was telling him. Is there a rope in the trunk? He asked, already going to the truck. The young man nodded. Miguel opened the back of the truck, removed chains, gloves, and an improvised hook that he used for cases like this. With the skill of someone who had done it more times than he wanted to remember, he attached the car to the truck firmly. It won't be quick, he warned. But we arrive at the station. I don't even know how to thank you. You are saving my day. Really? Miguel did not answer. He climbed back into the cab, started the engine, and engaged first gear. The truck roared again like a waking bull. The hitched car dragged like an unexpected weight, and time did run faster than ever. As he drove, Miguel did not take his eyes off the road. Each kilometer traveled was one less for delivery, but also one more on the path to dignity. And he had no idea who this man was, who he was helping. The BR-163, that morning, looked like a painting in motion. Straight road, blackened sky, bushes, swaying in the wind, and in the center, Miguel's old truck, now pulling a sedan car as if carrying a burden of hope. The engine worked hard. With each climb, Miguel felt the weight double, as if life was testing his patience. He squeezed the steering wheel tightly, his gaze fixed on the side mirror, making sure the car remained steady behind him. The radio sizzled, out of tune. Only the sound of the engine and the constant drag of the metal chain connecting the two vehicles filled the silence. The road seemed endless. Sleep, once overwhelming, now gave way to a strange adrenaline rush. In the passenger seat, the thermos with coffee was already empty. The stale bread was still there, but Miguel did not feel hungry, just a mixture of tiredness and responsibility. How lucky I am that you stopped, said the young man through the car window. When they stopped quickly to check the hitch, Miguel replied with a discreet but tired smile. I didn't want to talk, not out of dislike, but because I felt time slipping in my body. Every kilometer traveled was a choice, and he was choosing to help. Almost 3 hours later, with the sky already clearing on the horizon, the lights of a gas station appeared like a mirage. Miguel pulled over the truck, turned off the engine, and got off with the muscles in his body screaming for rest. The young man ran to thank him. I got a signal now. I think you can call someone from the insurance company. I think I can find a way from now on, but he hesitated. He took his cell phone out of his pocket, looked at Miguel with an embarrassed look. I don't have a license. He didn't bring any money. I was so worried about the interview that I left with only my cell phone. I can't pay you for the help. Miguel was silent for a moment. His eyes burned, not only from sleep. He scratched his chin, looked at the truck, and then at the sky, where the sun began to rise as a reminder that the world was moving on. It's okay, he said at last. Go with God. He turned his back and slowly returned to the cabin. Each step seemed to weigh twice as much. He climbed up with effort, closed the door, and sat down looking at the steering wheel. He took a deep breath. I knew that the delivery would not be made on time. He knew that the goal would not be reached. I knew that no one in the company would understand or care about the reason for the delay, but he had done what he thought was right. He shifted into gear and continued his journey, empty-handed, but with a clear conscience. The young man stayed behind, watching that truck slowly follow the road. He didn't know it yet, but that help, received without charge, would cost the truck driver dearly, and it would change their lives forever. The sun was already rising in the sky when Miguel finally arrived at the distribution center. The gates were open, trucks coming and going, forklifts buzzing in the distance. But he knew it was already out of the delivery window. As he parked the truck, he looked at the clock on the dashboard. 3 hours and 20 minutes late. He came down from the cabin with his body broken, his eyelids heavy, his soul exhausted. The supervisor was already waiting, with a clipboard in his hand and an impatient look. Michael, what happened? You know the delivery had to arrive before 7 a.m. I had to stop on the road. A boy had a problem with the car. He replied sincerely, trying to explain without justifying himself too much. The supervisor just snorted. "You know this is logistics, right? It is not charity. Missed the window, missed the bonus. You will have to justify it in the system and there may still be an evaluation in HR." Miguel lowered his head. He didn't argue. He just signed the late delivery paper and walked slowly to the cafeteria, where he drank a thin coffee in a plastic cup, his hands trembling. On the way back home, he drove unhurriedly, with the load already delivered and his chest heavy. The radio played some country music from the past, but he didn't listen to it. He only thought about his wife and the bills and what he would have to cut that month to make up for what he lost earning. On the company's spreadsheet, he was now just a number with a red delay, but inside him, there was the quiet discomfort of knowing that he did the right thing, even if the system didn't value it. When he arrived home, he was greeted with a tired smile from his wife. "How was the trip?" Miguel only replied, "Long." He hugged her tightly. Then he took a hot shower and fell into bed without even having dinner. He slept for more than 12 hours straight. That night, he dreamed of the road. But this time, it was empty, and he alone. Little did he know that that decision that made him lose money would, years later, save his own life. Time passed as the miles on the road pass. Too fast when you're tired, too slow when you're suffering. Miguel continued working for a few more years. Retirement was a luxury he could not yet afford. With each trip, the body ached a little more. His calloused hands no longer had the same firmness, and his eyesight, even with glasses, began to fail in some curves. Once, on a night delivery, he felt a strong pain in his chest. He stopped the truck on the side of the road and remained motionless. For a few minutes, breathing hard. He thought it was tiredness, tension, or maybe age. He continued his journey, as he always did, ignoring the body's signals as if ignoring potholes in the road because he was already used to it. But the signs have returned. More often. Stronger. One day when he woke up, he fell to the floor of his room with dizziness. He was taken to the city's public hospital by a neighbor. After tests, the diagnosis came: serious heart problems, compromised arteries, urgent need for surgery. The family gathered around the bed. His wife, now with you, white hair and trembling hands, held his tightly. The eldest son, who served in the army, came in a hurry. The little granddaughter drew a truck and glued it to the window glass of the room. But the atmosphere was heavy. The surgery was delicate, high risk, and very expensive. The SUS had a queue for months. The private network was unviable. "Dad, we can try to kitty," said the son, already with a choked voice. "There's no time, my son," Miguel replied with a resigned smile. "If it doesn't work." The road was good, long but beautiful. The medical team did their best, but there were limits. There was a lack of resources, there was a lack of structure. Until a new doctor arrived at the hospital. He was the head of the cardiac surgery department. Young for the position he held, but highly respected. One of the most renowned in the region. Smart, ethical, and sensitive. When reading the patient's medical records, something bothered him. The name Miguel A. da Costa. It sounded familiar, very familiar. The doctor went to the bed to meet the patient in person, and when she opened the bedroom door and saw the man lying down, thin, tired, with kind eyes in spite of the pain, the past fell like silent thunder. The road, the broken car, the chain attached to the truck, the man in dirty clothes who, even exhausted, had stopped to help a stranger in the middle of the night years ago. It was him. The doctor's heart raced. The throat froze. Michael had saved his life. Now he had a chance to give back. Without fanfare, without telling anyone, he made a decision. And this decision would change everything. Dr. Andre Ferreira, head of the cardiac surgery department, stood at the door for a few seconds, watching that man who was sleeping with heavy breathing. There was a forced calm there, as if accepting fate for lack of an alternative. Miguel was thinner, older, with his skin marked by time and days on the road. But the look, The look was the same. That kind and serene look of the truck driver who years ago helped him when no one else showed up. Andre felt his heart tighten. It was as if time had taken a perfect turn to close a cycle. "Mr. Michael," he called softly as he approached the bed. Miguel opened his eyes slowly and tried to get up. He was weak. "Yes, it's me," she replied in a low, hoarse voice. "I'm Dr. Andre, responsible for heart surgeries here at the hospital. I came to talk to you about your case." Miguel nodded, not knowing what to expect. The doctor sat down by the bedside and for a moment hesitated. How to say that? How to reveal something so intimate, so transformative? Then he took a deep breath. "Mr. Miguel, you may not remember, but a few years ago on a cold night on the BR 163, you stopped your truck to help a broken car. A boy, alone, with a flat tire and no way out." Miguel frowned, trying to pull the memory. "I was that boy." Silence. Miguel blinked a few times. His face showed no surprise, but a slow, deep recognition shone in his tired eyes. A half-smile sprouted on his face, as if he were looking back at something forgotten in the depths of his memory. "Is that so? You, that guy with the tie," he murmured. "I thought I would never see it again. And I've never forgotten it. That changed my life, Mr. Miguel. I was going to a medical residency interview. If I hadn't arrived in time, maybe none of this would have happened. That help, even without you gaining anything in return, changed everything." Miguel closed his eyes for a moment. A sigh came out of his chest as if releasing an old weight. "I'm glad it worked out for you, doctor." "That's good." Andre held his hand firmly. "Now it's my turn to give back." "What do you mean?" "You're going to have this surgery here, me, with the best team we have, and your family won't pay a dime." Miguel's eyes filled with tears. "But, doctor, this is not done. I have no way to repay. You've already reciprocated." That day, when no one else stopped, emotion took over the room. Miguel's wife, who until then had been listening from the door, began to cry silently. The son, who had just arrived, hugged his father tightly, and the doctor, with a choked voice, only added, "You didn't just save my car that night. He saved what would come later, my career, my patience, the life I was able to build. Now I'm going to save yours." The news that the chief physician would personally perform the trucker's surgery spread quickly through the hospital corridors. Nurses commented quietly backstage. Younger doctors watched with admiration and curiosity. It was not common for a humble patient, without health insurance or resources, to be operated on directly by the hospital leadership. But there was no vanity there. There was a debt of soul, silent, old, and finally being paid. The surgery was scheduled for a Tuesday morning. The day before, Miguel spent part of the night awake holding his wife's hand. She tried to smile as she always did, but concern overflowed from her eyes. "It'll be all right, honey," he said, trying to comfort her. "If this road is really the last, at least I know I did good while I could." She did not answer. She just cried softly, with her head resting on his chest. When the team came to pick him up in the morning, Miguel shook hands with his son and granddaughter. The little girl handed him a new drawing, a blue truck, a red heart, and the word strength written in crooked letters. Inside the operating room, the atmosphere was different. Barren, precise, tense. Dr. Andre wore his cap and mask carefully. His eyes, however, betrayed what he felt, a mixture of responsibility, emotion, and deep reverence. It was not just another procedure. It was a mission of gratitude. "Let's do it together, team, and do it well," he said, looking into the eyes of the assistants. The surgery began promptly at 8:42 a.m. It lasted more than 6 hours. They were delicate moments. Miguel's heart was already very compromised. The risk was high. At times, the monitor set off alarms. The heartbeat fluctuated. But the team, experienced and well-led, kept calm. Dr. Andre commanded each stage with almost poetic precision, as if he were repairing something more than arteries. Repairing the link between past and present. Outside, the family waited in silence. His wife held the rosary tightly. The granddaughter dozed on her father's lap, hugging the drawing. Nurses brought coffee, but almost no one drank it. At 3:17 p.m., the door to the operating room finally opened. Dr. Andre removed his mask, the tired face, the red eyes. But a faint smile emerged. The surgery was a success. Silence for a second. Then, tears, hugs, the wife's deepest sigh in years. Dr. Andre approached her, still wearing a surgical gown, and said in a low voice, "Your husband is strong. Much stronger than he imagines." Miguel woke up slowly. First, he felt the sounds, the soft beep of the monitors, muffled voices in the hallway, the whisper of his wife next door saying, "He's waking up." Then, the light in the room. Weak, warm, welcoming. He tried to speak but couldn't. Then he smiled. I knew I was still there, that he had won. "You went through the surgery like a warrior, Miguel," said Dr. Andrew, entering the room with a calm countenance. "Now it's rest and recovery." Miguel just nodded. The emotion was so great that not even words dared to interrupt the moment. Over. The next few days, his story began to spread. First among hospital employees, then through social networks. A local journalist, upon learning of the case, published an article entitled, "The Truck Driver Who Saved the Doctor Who Saved Him." The Sassen text went viral. Thousands of comments, messages of support, tributes. People from all corners of the country were moved by the simplicity and grandeur of Miguel's gesture years ago, helping a stranger without asking for anything in return. Days later, a surprise upon being discharged, Miguel was invited to participate in a small event organized at the hospital, with the president on stage with difficulty, supported by his son and by Dr. Andre, who made a point of walking by his side. The auditorium was full. When it was announced, the clapping started slowly, and they grew. Miguel received a standing ovation. Not because he is a hero, not because he did something great in the traditional sense, but because he is a living example that a simple act of kindness can transform destinies. On the way out, a reporter asked, "Mr. Miguel, do you regret stopping that night to help?" Miguel smiled, his eyes teary. "I don't regret it. That was just another delivery. I just didn't know that on that day. The most important load of my life was in the car in the back." Dr. Andre, next to him, could not hold back his tears. And so, the story of an anonymous truck driver became a symbol of humanity, reminding the world that even on the longest roads, what really moves life are the silent gestures of courage and compassion. Clear. Here's a striking final thought, followed by a powerful CTA, call to action. Ideal for ending a video, viral text, or even high-impact motivational content. In the rush of life, we tend to believe that only what gives immediate return is worth. If that time is money, that helping without reward is loss. But stories like Trucker Miguel's remind us of a forgotten truth. The good you do today may be exactly what saves you tomorrow. Miguel had nothing, just tiredness, haste, and a generous heart. And even so, he stopped. He helped. He gave himself, without knowing that that simple, silent, and invisible act to the eyes of the world would one day save him from death. Life has a mysterious way of closing cycles. What you sow silently, she reaps aloud. What you give with your heart, she gives back to you with gratitude. Sometimes the road you think is slowing you down, it is precisely the one that is leading you to your salvation. If this story touched you, you have a mission now. Share this with someone who needs to remember that good is never in vain. Comment here, "I choose to plant good." Let's spread this chain of humanity. And if you believe that the world needs more Miguels, save this post. Send it to someone and be the next to stop on the side of the road for someone. Because at the end of the day, the most important road, it is the one we go through with our hearts.